Welcome back to Let's Talk Careers. I'm so excited to bring another incredible guest. Today we are meeting with Jarlath Madine, who is coming to us from Ras Al Khaimah, and he is the principal of St. Mary's Private School. Welcome, Jarlath. Thank you for joining me today.
Hey, thank you. Nice to meet you, and thanks for having me.
I'm really excited to hear about the career journey of a school leader. Definitely not an interview that we come across regularly, but one that will not only help a young person considering a career in education, but also the career progression of, where do teachers or how can teachers progress in their career? So we're really, really excited about this one today. But before we talk about your current role and what you're doing, I want to take you down memory lane just a few years ago when you were in high school yourself, in secondary school. Did you always know that being a teacher and going into education was something that you wanted to do?
No, never. And I don't think there's anybody that I know of at that age who actually wants to be a teacher. Like even my own four children, they say their mother was also a teacher. They say, anybody want to be a teacher? And they go, no way. However, one of them did actually become a teacher. But certainly when I was in high school, I had zero interest in being a teacher. I actually wanted to be a carpenter, and then I wanted to be a geologist. So whenever I actually left school, I went to university to study geology for a year, which was good. I left it after a year because one of the lecturers said, Jarlath, all you're going to do, because I wanted to study volcanoes in Hawaii. And he said, look, that's all very nice, but not many people do that. And he said, you'll probably end up out in the desert somewhere in the Middle East, just mud logging. Now, I'm not mud logging, but I've actually spent lots of years living in the Middle East as a teacher and a school leader. But no, I was zero interest in being a teacher, and I just sort of literally drifted into it. Because ended up not wanting to be a geologist, but I loved sport. And there was a teacher training college part of the university in Belfast, and you could study physical education. And I heard that the lecturers were all about playing basketball and football and swimming, going skiing, going hiking. So I said, that's for me. So I enrolled to study PE, and the rest is history. Yeah.
So tell us what it was like when you were studying PE. Now, I think that's really interesting because I come across many, many students who are very interested in sport. And when they share that with their parents, the big concern for parents is, what are you going to do with sport? So from your perspective of studying physical education and connecting it to teaching, what kind of tips can you offer a young person that might never have thought about teaching, but really enjoys sport and being immersed in that world of sport?
Yeah, I mean, I think these days there's so many opportunities in the sports world, whether you're going to be in, marketing or advertising or sponsorship or all that sort of side of it, and to have like a sports background, we actually understand sport, is very important. I suppose to me, basically, you could just be a PE teacher, and that's what was. So as long as you enjoyed PE, but also if you played a lot of sport, then you had the opportunity to play at a higher level and to compete, and you got really, really good coaching, and you end up getting coaching badges for soccer, for rugby, for cricket, for athletics, for trampolining, for judo, all of these things. So just to have those extra things on your CV was just a really good thing to have. So even if you didn't become a teacher, just to have as many extra qualifications as you can is an important thing to have. Even if you're, I don't know, going to take a completely different career journey, a lot of employers and people like to see what else you've done as opposed to just what your specific role is. And going out and coaching and helping people is a skill that you can use in any sort of job.
So I want to take you down your career experiences. I know that after you graduated, you did travel abroad. You went to the US and you were working in a variety of different things. before you began your teaching career. But for a young person that's thinking, okay, so let's say I go into teaching, how will I progress? Looking at your experiences, you went through teaching, but then you also decided that you wanted to have that international experience. Would you say that that's a common path for teachers, or is that something that you don't really come across very often, and is something a little bit different? Or should a young person say, you know what, I don't just have to teach in that linear fashion, I can get more exposure, and so traveling abroad before climbing up that career ladder?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I was always a bit of an adventurer and traveler, and I loved to travel. And I knew I didn't want to live in Ireland or work in Ireland. And I knew there was international schools. So that was my sort of aim, was to try and get work in an international school somewhere. So after I came back from America, back home again, and I said, and there was no teaching jobs I was in Northern Ireland, and those days in the 80s, life was pretty tough in the north of Ireland, you know, with the troubles. It just wasn't a nice place to live. So I went to London. Now, even though I was a secondary school PE teacher with geography, I ended up getting a job as a primary school teacher. And the only real experience I had of that was when I was a primary school student. And then I did one of my teaching practices in a primary school. And I went in, this was in South London, and I had 45 students, all to me, teaching them English, maths, geography, history, and I loved it. I actually fell in love with it. I used to get out of bed in the morning, excited to go to work. It was so good, you know. And then straight away, leadership opportunities come your way. They say, do you want to be in charge of sport in the school? I go, yeah, of course. And they'll give you some extra money for it as well. So the big thing about education in schools, there's always leadership opportunities. Like, I don't think anyone ever sets out to be a school principal. I certainly didn't. You know, you do take it one step at a time. And then when you sort of feel some sort of success, or you enjoy that leadership role, then you say, right, okay, what else is there? So schools will always offer lots of leadership opportunities. And you don't have to stay in the UK or your home country. You know, international schools are really, really good at providing those opportunities as well.
Your experience in traveling from Qatar to Dubai, back to the United Kingdom, you went to Vietnam, Malaysia, now in Ras Al Khaimah. What would you say was the biggest learning on that cultural experience and in your career?
Oh my goodness, so many things. I mean, there's not one singular thing I would have learned. There's just so many at so many different levels. You know, from an educational point of view, you know, I learned so much about how to be a good teacher from good teachers. I learned, you know, from good school leaders. I learned probably more about life in general. You know, like I remember going to live in Bangkok in 1991, and I'd never been to Asia before. And I remember just getting picked up at the hotel, sitting on a bus and just looking at all these strange things. And I remember staying in the hotel that night, getting up the next morning, going out for a walk, opening the hotel, and it was like, whoa. The smells, people cooking on the street, motorbikes, just everything was just something I'd never experienced before. And I remember and still even get excited just thinking about those moments. You know, I remember also in Bangkok going with the kids and doing charity work, just going to some of the slums and some of the poverty that you had in Bangkok in those days that I wasn't used to as well. Just learning to work with people from different countries. You know, it was Bangkok Patana School, fantastic school, probably one of the top international schools in the world still. And I was working with Australians and Americans and Canadians and people from New Zealand, people from the UK, people from Ireland. It was so global. And I think then I felt myself, right, I'm definitely in a global village here. And then just been able to go and travel at weekends and being on a tropical island or on the back of an elephant and just sampling all the different foods. Yeah, I think it just made everybody just grow up very, very quickly. You know, when I came back again to visit my family in Ireland, it was like, right, no one's actually really interested in my story, as they would say, well, how's Thailand? And I would go, well, and then they would turn their backs and they would just start talking about the weather or something that they were really interested in, you know. But I think you just grow and develop, travel broadens the mind is an old sort of cliche that people use, and it certainly is. You just see things that you wouldn't actually see if you're living in your own home country, for sure. But yeah, but learning, I went there as a primary school teacher, year 6. And after a year, I got promotion to be a year leader because I sort of really got into it. There's this principal came over, a guy called Graham Sullivan, and he was the first educator to ever excite me. I can't think of one single teacher that I thought was brilliant when I was at school, primary or secondary. I just didn't like school, to be honest, and I struggled at school academically, but I knew it was bright, but I think I may have been ADHD or something. I don't know. But this guy was so good and he just got me so excited. And I just said, look, is there any leadership opportunities? And he went, yeah, of course, we'll sort something out. And I became a year leader for year 6, which was 3 classes, which grew to 6 classes. And then I was on the senior leadership team, and then I could actually make decisions that was going to affect not just 30 students that I was teaching, but 30 times 3 in the whole of year 6. And then I became in charge of curriculum design. So I redesigned the whole curriculum. And so that had an impact on maybe 600-700 students. And that's whenever I really knew that I actually wanted to become a school principal, because I was confident in my own ability as a teacher, because I was making a difference to the students. And then as a year later, I was making a difference to the year group. And I said, right, what about a whole school? I could be the person who could make all these changes and do good in the world. And that's what I did. So I set my sights then on becoming a principal. And then, so after 5 years in Bangkok, I went back to the UK and I got a job as a deputy principal in a primary school in Brighton. By that stage as well, I had 2 children. And so obviously, as well as developing as a school leader, you're developing as a father as well, and all of those things together. Now, when I went back to England, a place called Brighton, really cool city, but it wasn't as exciting as living in Thailand. And I want to go overseas again, So a little bit of conflict with my wife because she wanted to remain in England. And then we actually moved back to her hometown. So by that stage, we had the 2 kids, and difficult when you have no family support, to help you. So I went back to hometown. I got another job as a deputy principal in another school. But then in 1999, which was 5, 6, 7, 4 years, I got my first job as a school principal, which was exciting. At that stage, there was 3 children as well. And obviously, as kids come along, the bills come along as well, and it's expensive. So also knew, right, there's more money as a school principal, and that was another reason for it as well, because the salaries and benefits once you go up through the school career ladder to school principal level is good. People get paid quite well. So then that was me just on that sort of trajectory to becoming a principal. Became a principal. Another school in England, in Kent. Loved it, really loved it. I was younger than all of the teachers, at that stage, and I struggled with that a bit, because there was these middle-aged, elderly, everybody was older than me, and I said, how can I be telling them what to do? I'm only just a young kid, really, but we worked it all out, and they respected me and I respected them, and it was good. So yeah, so no, you learn so many different things. But I think at some stage, I said earlier, people don't go out thinking they want to be a principal. That just happened to be the thing that sort of hit me at some stage that I want to do this. And there's lots of other career routes you can take in teaching. So once you get your first 2 to 3 years done, I mean, there's lots you could be working, if you like data, like be working with assessment, and you can be in charge of a curriculum area, you can be in charge of pastoral. A lot of people will go into that and end up, working with young people with their careers and guide them to go to university, or students who are struggling with learning, helping and guiding them. They all need leaders, and they all need good leaders. And good leaders are people who really care about what they do. And that's the nice thing about schools. There's something for everybody. If you want that leadership role, there's something that's going to sort of suit your desires and your needs and your passions,
I really appreciate you touched on some very important topics in that a young person needs to really pay attention to. For example, you talked about adaptability, not just in taking on those different roles, but also adapting to how your family lifestyle was changing and evolving, and constantly kind of bouncing back and forth between making career choices that would better the quality of your life for your family, your children, and also your role as a father. Definitely a conversation that we rarely have with a young person is, how will your career choice influence or impact the quality of life that you're hoping to achieve? And then you also mentioned ageism in, how will I be telling people who are much older than me what they should be doing when I'm still young myself? Another topic that we rarely talk about. And I think young people, especially here in the United Arab Emirates, they almost have this assumption that they're going to go from graduating to getting a management role and that leadership role. So as a leader now in an education system who does recruit for you, I mean, obviously you're recruiting teachers all the time, and probably administrative staff and other members of the institution. What do you look for when you're looking for new talent? And that's something that a young person needs to hear, because all of the education, all of the experience, they want to understand what will make them stand out to their future employers. So what kind of tips can you offer a student thinking about getting their first job in education, or maybe a teacher watching this and thinking, I'm really struggling to get into that leadership role? So from your perspective, what do you look for in talent?
You sort of, there's two things. One, if somebody's applying for a job as a maths teacher, you have to check, they've got the maths qualifications, they've taught it before, they know the curriculum. So you have to make an assumption that these people can teach maths, they can teach science, they can teach English, and you check that. But then you have to go to what I would consider the real thing of the people who I want in my school. And these all have to be people who are passionate. Now, not just passionate about learning or students, but passionate about something. And one of the questions I'll always ask, well, tell me what are you passionate about? What gets you going? What do you get excited by? And if somebody says, well, nothing, then I go, okay, well, not really the person for my school here. But if somebody talks about, it could be travel, it could be sport, it could be cooking, it could be global issues or whatever, it shows that they're actually thinking beyond what their subject matter is. And that's what students love with teachers. They like to talk about all the things, and they like to associate their teachers with something else other than just sort of maths and science and English. You also need to be a really, really good communicator. So that means not just talking and being able to present and entertain, but also to listen to people. Because one of the things that I do mostly is listen to teachers, I listen to students, I listen to parents all of the time, and you have to listen to them. And you actually have to have these sort of skills that they have to see that you're actually listening to them as well. And it's not just sort of a blank thing. So, so it's those things. And these are like people skills that you have. And some people say, well, you either have it or you don't, but you can develop these as well. Like even in school, I'll say we prepare students to pass exams, but we also prepare them for life. So we need to do other things with them. Like when I was a principal in Malaysia, most of our students were Chinese Malaysians. And they were very, the school system in Malaysia it's not holistic, it's very academic. And I remember talking to these parents and saying, right, so what do your children want to do? And they said, well, I want to be a mechanical engineer. Right, okay. So mechanical engineering, you go to Southampton University in the UK, you're going to need 2 A's and a B at A level. I go, oh yeah. I says, will your son get 2 A's and a B? And he says, yeah. And I says, I agree. 100% will he get 2 A's and a B. I says, however, there's 50 places at the Southampton University, and there's 150 applicants, and 100 applicants will actually get the 2 A's and a B or even more. How is the university going to choose? And he says, I don't know. I says, well, I'll tell you how they're going to do it, because employers these days just don't want an engineer, because, you know, even if you're a dentist, at some stage you're going to be running a business. You're going to be doing marketing. You're going to be working with customers and clients. You need to have other skills that you need to have in that toolbox, not just the maths and the science. And they were looking at me and I went, yeah, and this is vital. So I says, in school, this is when I talk about our holistic program. And you can do it simply, something like the Duke of Edinburgh Award or the International Award, you know, and then that you're learning a new skill. It could be a language. It could be, some people might do magic tricks. Some people even decide they're going to be a stand-up comedian, you know, and try and go on stage and make jokes, you know, new skills, or do lots of different sports, you know, or even go on an adventure like climb a mountain or sail down a river and charity work. So these are the 4 areas, because then whenever your son or child will go for an interview for a job or at university, they're going to say, well, tell me, what else have you done? And you can say, well, you know, I was actually, one night I went and stood up in a comedy store and told some jokes. I actually worked one summer for a charity, and I used to go and clean out kennels, and I actually learned how to play rugby, and I actually went and climbed in the Himalayas. And that's what people are looking for. And these are the type of experiences and skills that everybody needs to look for. And if a teacher comes into me and can talk about something, I don't care what it is, but if you can see the passion, the experience, you know, they're going to bring that into the students, and this will actually support our students grow as well. So it's having those holistic experiences and skills, and be able to communicate with people would be the 2 big things.
Amazing. I can go on forever, Jarlath, but I know that we need to bring this to a wrap. Just before we say goodbye, if you could leave students that might not know what they want to do with one big tip that, you know, it's not just about education. It could be used in any kind of career aspiration context. What would your number 1 tip be in how a young person can prepare themselves for making that next choice?
Well, you know, I'm also fortunate. I've got 4 kids as well who are all sort of in their 20s now, and have all done sort of different career choices. But the big thing is not to close any doors too early in your life. You know, like somebody saying, well, I don't want to do science for GCSEs. Okay, why not? Well, because I don't want to do anything with science. I said, but you never know. So it's not closing any doors. It's making the most of all the opportunities that you can do. So it's doing as many GCSEs as you can. That's going to help you get good grades. And if there's like a student council, join the student council. If there's a sports competition, join the sports competition. If there's a spelling bee, join it. Put your hand up to everything and to have a go at stuff. You know, and that's when you'll actually know what you're actually good at and what you like to do. But going forward, the more experiences and the more certificates and the things that you do will hold you in good stead for any sort of future opportunity that might come your way. So say yes, don't say no.
Love that. Say yes. Definitely. I can see it on a t-shirt. Just say yes. Thank you so much, Jarlath. It's been amazing having you. And thank you, everybody, for watching. In case you missed it, we were speaking with Jarlath Madine, who is the principal of St. Mary's Private School in Ras Al Khaimah. Thank you for watching, and we will see you at our next Let's Talk Careers with Ms.V.